They had survived the collapse, the city had fallen, the walls had been broken, the temple had been burned, and after years in exile, the people returned to what remained. They rebuilt their homes. They planted their fields, they repaired their roofs, they covered their walls in wood, but at the center of the city, the temple remained broken, and a prophet named Haggai asked a question that still follows us now. What are you building? While the most important part of your life remains in ruins? Welcome to Code of Scripture. Today, we continue the Code of Scripture. After the silence of Zephaniah comes a different kind of warning. Not a warning about a storm approaching. A warning about what happens after the storm has passed, when people begin rebuilding. But forget what they were supposed to rebuild first. This is Haggai, the forgotten temple. Haggai speaks during one of the strangest moments in the history of Judah. The people had been taken from their land, their city had been destroyed, their sacred center, the Temple of Jerusalem, had been reduced to ash. For generations, the temple had represented more than a building. It was the meeting point between heaven and earth, the place where the people remembered who they were, the place where their history, identity, grief, gratitude, and faith were gathered into one space. Then it was gone, but eventually the exile ended, the people returned, and they came back to a city filled with rubble, broken gates, collapsed homes, stones scattered across the ground. They had a chance to begin again, and at first they began rebuilding the temple. They laid foundations, they carried stone, they gathered wood, but then resistance came. Pressure came, fear came, the work stopped, and slowly, the unfinished temple became part of the landscape a ruined people learned to walk past. Years passed, the people did not stop working. They were busy, they built houses, they repaired roofs, they planted crops, they traded in markets, they tried to create stability after catastrophe. From the outside, this may have seemed reasonable. They had suffered. They needed shelter. They needed food. They needed to survive. But Haggai saw something deeper. They were rebuilding everything around the sacred center, while leaving the sacred center abandoned. And so he asked, "Is it time for you yourselves to dwell in your paneled houses, while this house lies in ruins?" It is one of the sharpest questions in Scripture, not because homes are wrong, not because comfort is evil, but because a person can become so focused on maintaining life that they forget what makes life meaningful. They can repair every outer wall, while the inner sanctuary collapses. Haggai repeats one phrase like a signal sent through time. Consider your ways. Look at the path you are walking. Look at what you are building. Look at what you have neglected. The people worked hard, but they felt empty. They planted much, but harvested little. They ate, but were not satisfied. They drank, but were not filled. They earned wages, only to place them into a bag with holes. This is not simply an ancient warning about crops and money. It is a description of spiritual exhaustion, the feeling of constantly moving. Without arriving, the feeling of earning. Without keeping, the feeling of consuming. Without being satisfied, Haggai was describing a pattern that still exists. When the center is forgotten, everything around it begins to leak. Time leaks, energy leaks, money leaks, attention leaks, and no amount of activity can repair a life built around an empty center. The temple was a real place: stone, wood, gold, smoke, prayer. But it also carried a deeper meaning throughout Scripture. Sacred buildings often mirror sacred people. A house can be a symbol of a life. A city can be a symbol of a civilization. A temple can be a symbol of the inner world. And this is where Haggai becomes personal. What is the unfinished temple in your life? The part of you keep promising to return to. The dream you abandoned. The relationship you allowed to decay. The faith you stopped tending. The health you ignored. The truth you buried beneath work. Distraction, fear, or survival. Most people do not abandon their inner temple in one dramatic moment. They abandon it gradually. One delay, one excuse, one more urgent task, one more thing to fix outside, until years pass, and the ruins become familiar. But Haggai is not a prophet of despair. His message does not end with accusation. It ends with a command. Go up to the mountain, bring wood, build the house. The answer was not hidden. It was not complicated. Return to the work, gather what is needed, begin again. The people did not have to rebuild everything in one day. They only had to stop walking past the ruins. They had to acknowledge what had been neglected and then lift the first stone. There is something powerful about that image, not a miracle descending from the sky, not a sudden transformation, hands gathering wood, feet climbing a mountain, people carrying materials back to a broken place. The sacred is rebuilt through attention, through repetition, through the decision to return. Haggai ends with a promise that seems impossible. The new temple would not look like the old one. The people who remembered the former temple wept when they saw the new foundation. It was smaller, poorer, less magnificent. They believed the glory was gone. But Haggai told them, "The latter glory of this house shall be greater than the former." This is the final mystery of Haggai. Sometimes, what is rebuilt after destruction does not resemble what existed before. It may be humbler, simpler, less impressive to the world, but it can hold a deeper kind of glory because it is no longer built on assumption. It is built after loss, after silence, after awakening. The rebuilt temple is not powerful because it is perfect. It is powerful because someone chose not to leave it in ruins. Haggai asks every generation the same question. What are you building, and what are you neglecting? Are you strengthening the walls around your life while the center remains empty? Are you busy but disconnected? Comfortable but unfinished? The forgotten temple is not always a building. Sometimes it is the quiet part of you that has been waiting for your return. And perhaps the first act of rebuilding is not grand. Perhaps it is simply this: to stop, to look at the ruins, and to decide they are not the end of the story. The people gathered wood, they carried stone, they returned to the center, and slowly, the temple began to rise again. Not because the world had become easy, but because they remembered what mattered. This has been a Mysterious Encounters entry into the Code of Scripture. The archive is never closed, and the forgotten temple is still waiting to be rebuilt.